Okay, so hello listeners and welcome back to Edie Extra. Building on the success of Edie's long-standing Sustainability Uncovered podcast series, Edie Extra is the place to find all the in-depth conversations with sustainability professionals and experts about their journey and their thoughts about the current trends that are shaping corporate sustainability. Today, we are headed back to the green room where the ED team sits down with the biggest names in corporate sustainability to gain valuable insights and lessons and to find out what gets them out of bed every morning and what trends they see on the horizon. And for this episode today, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Amanda Davies, who is the Chief R&D, Procurement and Sustainability Officer at Mars Snacking. So, Amanda, firstly, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great, and a pleasure to be in the green room, so thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, I'll preface, this is a virtual call. We don't actually have a green room at ED, unfortunately, as much as I keep going to the board about getting one. But the joys of kind of modern working is that we can kind of meet up with a wider range of sustainability professionals because we're not having to travel so far, which is great. But Amanda, like I said, thank you so much for joining me. And I think a great place would be to start with just a little bit about your history with Mars Snacking, how long you've kind of been working there, and how kind of sustainability is kind of built up into your job remit.
I've been working at Mars for over 27 years actually. So for all of my career since I graduated, and thrilled to be in this quite unique role, which, as you said, with my job title, combines the R&D, the procurement and sustainability, which really allows me to kind of join the dots across our business, and really allows me to kind of focus on unlocking some of the big opportunities and challenges we have in sustainability. I, as I say, been with Mars for many years and absolutely convicted and committed to working on sustainability, and this role and its unique makeup I think really allows me to do that in an incredibly committed and unique way actually.
Yeah, no, definitely. We see a lot of sustainability teams across a range of sectors and organisations and countries, and I think the feeling is, despite the sustainability kind of bubble expanding, it's kind of gone mainstream recently. A lot of these teams probably feel quite siloed. So it's really interesting that you've got that three-pronged approach in your job title. How did it become so integrated? Did you start in one particular department and expand out? How did that kind of take shape?
Yeah, I think we've been on probably over a decade working on sustainability in Mars. It's absolutely a core part of our business, our purpose. We're very committed to it. But it has evolved. We started off probably sustainability being a unique function. We then very quickly combined that with procurement, because we have bold ambitions to get to net zero, minus 50% of greenhouse gas by 2030, and over 60% of our emissions are in our extended supply chain. So it makes absolute sense that you combine procurement and sustainability. And then more recently, what we've done is brought R&D underneath the umbrella, so that as we think about the development, the design of products and innovation, we can also hold sustainability absolutely at the core.
Yeah, it's great that the R&D is kind of developed on it. I was reading some research earlier that says that kind of spending on I suppose climate innovation is kind of being kind of outranked by other areas of the business right now. I think it's fair to say, certainly in the UK, a lot of businesses are in this kind of short-termism focus, just a kind of economic downturn where they focus more on just kind of, I suppose, keeping the lights on and switching them to like LEDs, if we're going to use a really broad example in that sense. So having that kind of integrated in, how has it kind of just changed the discussions that you have? Like it feels like you'll have a lot of agency to really drive some innovation towards those big net zero targets that you've got.
I think about the organisation construct we have is unique, and I can talk a little to that. But I think what has to be true first is your personal conviction and the business's focus on sustainability, I feel super committed to this, because I say this many times, and I'm often maybe too many times, but there is a mantra that I am committed to, which is we are the first generation of leaders that can't say we didn't know about the impacts of climate change, and we're the last generation of leaders that can act before it's too late. If you hold that as an individual, that is a reality that I kind of wake up every day knowing that I can't leave this work to the leader who comes after me, and I can't hold the leaders who were in this role before me to account, because maybe all the science wasn't as clear. This is my job, my responsibility to navigate the organisation to a kind of a roadmap to net zero. It starts with that personal belief, but then as you say, I've also got to complement that personal conviction, the organisational construct that allows me to think about sustainability, greenhouse gas reduction in every facet of the business, to as we the innovation that we're starting with, expecting the product developers to think about, what are the most delicious products that we can make. So thousands of our delicious products are eaten every second around the world, but not only are they delicious, what's the greenhouse gas that we're thinking about as we design those products? So you can instill that into the organisation, and in the unique role that I have, which is great.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great kind of position to really be able to amplify that. I really like that mantra as well. It kind of shows not just the pressure, but also the opportunity. I think that's sustainability professionals are always quite focused on the opportunity more so than the challenge, which I think is always nice. But I think it's great having that personal mantra, but I think in your role, obviously, with lots of touch points, maybe there's a bit of kind of a job translating that into kind of business speak for certainly down the supply chain. I don't think anyone's inherently unsustainable or kind of against this movement, but it might need kind of explaining in a way that's slightly different. So with kind of your role in partnering with the supply chain actors on the road to net zero, how is that starting to take shape for Mars Snacking?
There's three parts to this as we kind of think about, as you say, nobody inherently wants to be unsustainable. You've got to start off by saying, okay, what are some of the big, bold goals that you want to have? So, pathway to net zero, as I said, 70% of our emissions are in the extended supply chain. So it's critical that you have a bold ambition, but also critical that you have a milestone along the way that everybody understands across the entire organisation, across the entire supply chain. So the short-term one for me is kind of getting to minus 50% by 2030. So start off by having those bold ambitions that everybody can understand. The second, I think, is making sure that you're vulnerable enough to know that it is impossible to do this alone. Partnerships are an imperative part of us achieving those bold ambitions, and that's partnerships with kind of across the business, so across the functions, so that we're kind of working together, partnerships with some of our big suppliers, partnerships with startups, partnerships with universities. So the power of partnership, I think, is another really important thing. And then the third element is around kind of making sure that we kind of anchor on progress, not promises. It's super easy to kind of say, we're going to do this X, Y, and Z, but it's actually about monitoring every single day. Are we achieving those goals? An example that I can borrow across the procurement into sustainability. I look at my cost saving targets, how much we have to kind of deliver from an earnings point of view. I look at greenhouse gas with the same rigour, with the same performance culture to make sure we're holding ourselves accountable for many different aspects of performance, kind of earnings and sustainability in the same way.
That's really a good point about applying other lessons from maybe the other kind of remits that you cover into sustainability. And I'd actually wonder if I've realised I'm putting on your spot here, but is there any kind of other lessons you've taken from those functions that you think maybe a sustainability professional listening would be able to apply to their kind of role a bit?
So I think, if you're a sustainability professional, and I do acknowledge when you started this that it can sometimes feel quite lonely, that you've been given an objective to go and pioneer and push that may feel like it's on your shoulders. So I think the first advice I would give is, how do you create enterprise accountability for the sustainability goals, and this is this kind of idea of partnership within the organization, and that requires you to create short milestones, annual milestones, translate those for the business in a language they understand, and kind of share that responsibility. So kind of shared goals across the organisation would be one piece. Talking about partnership as well, I think the other element is making sure that all the different kind of this learning kind of from a procurement, where that your job is about working with suppliers. That's kind of what you do. You're the interface to the business with the external partners. Having to make other functions kind of understand that they need to kind of understand, our suppliers. An example, I've taken all of our leadership team to a different origin, taken them to a farm, they've talked to farmers, and they've understood the supply chain farmer back versus, I call it, kind of PowerPoint forward. And I think that's another really important learning about taking business leaders to the field where impact that your business is making really opens their eyes and actually allows you to make much bigger change than you could without their sponsorship and involvement.
Yeah, no, that's great to see. And there was a word you used that really kind of sprung out to me. As a journalist, I always latch onto words, but you spoke about vulnerability and kind of progress over perfection. And I think that's a really hard thing for businesses to do. I think there's so much scrutiny on corporate sustainability now, more so certainly than a few years ago, with investor demands for disclosure, consumers being much more aware of this now. And vulnerability, I think, is something that maybe a lot of businesses kind of shy away from. They kind of like, here's what we're doing, here's how we get in there. And if they don't quite have all the answers, they might go a little bit quiet, and not give it. But how do you get in the mindset of talking about vulnerability and that kind of progress over perfection, which is so crucial to the sustainability agenda? What advice would you have for that?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's, as I say, but I do think it's really critical. And for me, vulnerability you can either see as a weakness. I'm staying where I've not quite kind of got it all sorted out. Or you can see being vulnerable is an invitation to help and partner. And, my provocation to anybody that is struggling to be vulnerable is kind of put themselves at the other side of that question. If somebody comes to you and says, I figured a bit of this out, but I haven't figured it all out, could you help? I'm guessing 9 times out of 10, the emotional reaction is to want to help somebody to achieve a goal, particularly when it's a goal so important as climate change, or many of the other areas in terms of packaging, etc., in the sustainability phase. So I think it starts with understanding vulnerability is an invitation to partnership, and partnership is a much more powerful approach to tackle some of these big challenges that sit in front of us. And, an example of this, maybe to kind of bring it to life a little bit, is some of the work that we're doing in dairy. So we've launched a campaign, kind of moving dairy forward. We're being quite vocal about it, sharing what we're doing. We're not doing it because we say we've got all of the answers to kind of solving for greenhouse gas in dairy, but by saying that we're starting this work, by saying that we're committed to it, has actually invited a huge number of conversations of people kind of coming and reaching out to us and saying, oh wow, you're doing that, we're doing a little bit too, so maybe if we come together we can be even more powerful. One of our teams is actually in field with another big CPG, and I got pictures from them last night. Because of that campaign about us saying that this is what we're doing, they've joined the dots and they said, actually, well, maybe we could do even more together. So just a great example of kind of vulnerability leading to bigger performance than you could do alone.
No, that's great to hear. It's a really nice example. Thank you, Amanda. And we've spoken a lot about the kind of internal processes for businesses, but there's a lot happening kind of externally at the moment. And certainly as we kind of build towards the end of 2024, and it feels frightening to say the end of 2024. This year's kind of flown by, but in the coming months, we've obviously got New York Climate Week, which is a kind of yearly fixture building with the Global Goals Week. But then moving beyond that, we've got COP16 for the biodiversity negotiations in October. In November, we move into COP29 in Azerbaijan, and the kind of next, kind of not an official stock take, but the next kind of like progress update as to where we're all moving in terms of towards the Paris Agreement. And even after that, we've got the kind of UN Plastics Treaty, the kind of really big external frameworks and levers that could, really shape the corporate agenda moving forward. Not directly, but certainly kind of either kind of energize or kind of deflate depending on what's agreed there. As a kind of sustainability professional that looks at these big global frameworks and negotiations, what is it that you kind of look for and kind of hope for when those discussions take place? How do you kind of apply big global initiatives like that and kind of implement it into your day-to-day job?
So as you said, there's a lot of kind of events as kind of coming forward. New York Climate Week this year I'm going to be attending, and we have representations at many of those events. I think, I might just kind of link back to kind of this point on how you show up at these events is probably as important as kind of, some of the big branding or the big topics. Making sure that you show up with a sharing what you know, and really trying to make sure that you're clear, that you're open to collaboration. Because often at these events, they're fabulous for convening, as you say, many kind of thought leaders, implementers of kind of some of these grand challenges that sit in front of us. But my advice to anybody that's listening that's going to be attending one of these events is show up with this level of confident vulnerability, sharing what you're doing with pride so that others can learn from it, but having a real open mind to listen and learn, and therefore you can kind of create real collaboration as you kind of go forward and work on these things.
Perfect, Jenna. That's a great point on that. And just to finish off, man, I'm conscious of time, and just from talking to you, I can tell how busy you are in terms of what you're trying to achieve here. But when I talk to sustainability professionals, whether it's kind of one-to-one like this or in groups, it's quite easy to focus on the challenges and the kind of hurdles facing them. But I always kind of like to finish on this kind of look ahead to what kind of excites you in the kind of corporate sustainability space right now. So is there anything you're seeing? It might be something that you guys are working on, or just this kind of external trend shaping up that really kind of excites you right now in corporate sustainability.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that excite me, but if I was to choose one, it would be the work that we're doing with unreasonable food. So this is a collaboration where we have identified a number of big challenges, opportunities that we need to work on in sustainability, and have created a cohort of startups, ventures who've got some of the amazing science, the brilliant ideas that will help us solve for some of these. And we're working on how to kind of connect these startups with their fabulous ideas and approaches with Mars Snacking, who has the scale and reach to take these around the world. And as I say, I can't go through all of the startups that we're working with, but there's 15 amazing startups, examples of L'Oréal, who are taking the science of seaweed and seeing how they can create packaging from that, barriers for paper to allow us into the plastic. Or again, on a theme of seaweed, Sea Forest, who's taking, red seaweed, turning it into an additive for cows that really helps reduce the methane that they produce. So I'm super excited about that space, really excited about what we can do to take some of these brilliant ideas of wonderful startups to scale, so that we can really make sure that we're kind of driving and delivering some of the impacts that we want to do.
It's great to hear an organisation that's like looking ahead at the innovation and the changes that can make. I think a lot of businesses are perhaps feel like they're stuck looking over their shoulder or back over the data of previous years to kind of get their reporting and their kind of comms all lined up. So it's great to kind of see behind the curtain a little bit of an example of how innovation can really drive sustainable business. But Amanda, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm interested to see what those innovations and how they shape up. But it's been a pleasure to speak to you. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, Matt. It's been a really, really enjoyable conversation. So thank you.
And we'll soon be back on the ED Extra channel with more Susty Talks, behind the scenes access to key sustainability projects, and of course green room episodes like this where we sit down with some of the biggest brands and names in the sustainability space. So be on the lookout for those, and be sure to subscribe to the ED Extra podcast on Spotify and SoundCloud. And until next time, thank you and goodbye.